Hey everyone, today I am going to be talking about Etsy and the things that I wish I knew before I started my Etsy shop.
I started my Etsy shop in late 2019. It's been a wonderful experience so far. I sell budgeting printables, debt trackers, and all sorts of printables that help people and myself make their finances easier to track and more fun and colorful. It's something that I discovered I had a real passion for, and I have loved being on Etsy.
The number one thing I wish I had known before I started Etsy is how big Etsy is as a platform, as a marketplace, and how important SEO is on that marketplace. SEO is super important to Etsy's success, and Etsy has actually brought 55% of my traffic since I started on Etsy. Not this YouTube channel. Etsy is the main source of my traffic for my printables. It's actually really impressive that so many people find me on Etsy that wouldn't have found me on YouTube. I wish I knew before I started that search was so important and that I learned how SEO works on Etsy from my very first listing. Instead, I kind of just figured it out as I went. I was a blogger in my past life, so I do know a little bit about SEO, but every platform is different and Etsy has a few little quirks of its own. So I wish I had put more time up front into learning how listings work and how the SEO of a listing is really important. And if you don't know what SEO is, it's search engine optimization, and Etsy is a search engine, and Etsy listings are appearing in Google searches. So it's really just about making sure your listing has the right keywords, the good titles, good content, the pictures have clear descriptions. Everything is really just basic SEO. So if you know that, you're going to have a really good start. But I wish I had known how Etsy specifically functions with their search results. There are a lot of good options out there to learn about SEO on Etsy, so I recommend searching for some of them. There are some paid programs that kind of help you with your listings. There are options to just have a checklist to go through everything when you are working on SEO, but that is one of the biggest things on Etsy that I have seen that has made a difference in my traffic and honestly in my earnings. The next thing I wish I had known when I started Etsy is that your efforts are going to equal your success. Etsy is great. They are a marketplace, so people do come to you, but if you aren't putting in the effort, you're not going to succeed. And the more effort you put in, the more you succeed. The thing about Etsy that I've noticed is that when you're posting new listings, you're getting a bump from that effort, from adding new stuff to your shop. And then that brings in more people and you get more sales. So every time I post something new, I'm seeing that I'm getting more traffic and more results. It's kind of interesting to see, actually. So if you have an Etsy shop, you might have seen this as well. That goes along really well with the advice I've seen that the more listings you have, the better you're going to do, the more people are going to find you, and the more sales you're going to get. I've heard that 100 listings is kind of that sweet spot where once you get that, the growth is just almost exponential. So I don't have 100 listings, but I've found that the more listings I have, the bigger my shop gets. And if you're going for a different strategy where you're not trying to have 100 or 600 listings, then you have to put in effort to get people to your smaller amount of listings. I've seen some people be what I would consider pushy because I'm not very salesy. I'm not very pushy. I'm like, hey, I have this. If you want it, cool. If you don't, cool. But I've seen people go really hard on pushing their listings, pushing it in groups multiple times a day, sharing it everywhere. It's just the more they can do, the more they do. And it works if they have a good product. I've seen someone do this, and the more effort they've put in, the more sales they've gotten. They maybe have triple what I have, and it's actually a different niche. It's not the same thing that I do, but the fact that they've put in so much more effort, I can see those results in the number of sales they're getting. So on Etsy, your effort is going to equal your success. And I wish I'd known this in the beginning because I kind of just thought you put up stuff and it sold and you didn't have to do much. But honestly, your effort is going to determine how successful you are. One thing I wish I had known before I started on Etsy is that it is just as easy to sell a expensive item as a small priced item. I was terrified to sell anything over $5 when I started on Etsy. And I'm not sure why I had that in my head. I guess I wasn't confident in what I was making, even though the stuff I'm making is like cute and functional and fits a certain need that people have that I had. But I was worried that trying to sell anything over $1 or $1.50 was just going to flop and fail and never sell. And that's not true. My best-selling items are actually my most expensive items. So the fact that you can sell more expensive items for the same amount of effort as small price items means a lot. It means you can make more money with the same amount of effort if you're selling more expensive items than cheap items. This also plays into the fact that Etsy has fees. They have a lot of fees compared to some other options. They have a listing fee, they have a fee when you make the transaction, they have processing fees. Then you have to pay sales tax on things. There's a lot that gets taken out of your sell price before you even are paying taxes. So the fact that Etsy has so many fees, you have to think about that in terms of how much you're pricing your items for. So if you're pricing stuff for too low, it might not be worth it. I'm probably never going to sell coloring debt trackers for a lot of money because it just doesn't feel right to me. But those items don't make a lot of money because after the fees and after the taxes, you're only making a small amount. But bigger priced items they still have that profit and that margin where I'm still making a lot of money even after fees and taxes and all of that. So selling higher priced items on Etsy makes way more sense than trying to sell a ton of small priced items. That's my opinion, and that's something I wish I had known before I started, so I wasn't so scared to offer anything that was too expensive in my opinion. And the last thing I wish I had known before I started on Etsy is that when you're selling on Etsy, you're not in control. Etsy's in control. They are in control of who comes to your shop. They are in control of what they push, who they push toward your shop. They are in control of the platform. They are in control of how the search engine on Etsy works. They are in control of everything. You are using their platform to get that audience because it's a marketplace, but you are not in control of your shop. And I wish I'd really thought about that more or known that before I started on Etsy because I don't enjoy that. One recent example that actually has a lot of people planning to leave Etsy is the fact that they changed their advertising off-site and they are forcing sellers that make over $10,000 a year to use it. It's mandatory if you make over $10,000 a year. That process means that certain sellers, when an ad is used off-site, like on Google or something, and that brings in a buyer, they then will have to pay 12 to 15% of the price of their item to Etsy for that advertising. And that's a lot. And that is something that not everyone needs. Some people are doing super well on Etsy without advertising. I've never taken out ads on Etsy and I have 450 sales. I have YouTube as an advertising platform. I haven't found the need to do ads at all to get sales. And the fact that once we are over a certain amount of sales on Etsy, they're forcing us to do ads. That's frustrating because that's not part of my personal strategy. So the fact that you're on Etsy, you have to remember that Etsy's in control of the decisions. They can force you to participate in something that's not part of your strategy for your shop, for your sales. That is actually why I personally opened a Shopify store and am now selling my stuff on my own website. I love Etsy and it was a great place to get started, but there's so many things I wish I had known before I started, especially that Etsy's in control, not me. And if I had known that, I would have probably went a different direction, but I plan to continue my Etsy shop because the platform is so large and the marketplace brings 55% of my traffic. But I also plan to diversify and I have my own shop now and I have it on my website where I control and make the decisions. It's something I wish I had thought more of 8 months ago when I started on Etsy. So those are the things that I wish I had known before I started on Etsy.